Your Honor,
Yes.
Cario Shamas refuse.
101 Carrillo, Shamus Carrillo.
Yes.
Okay. In jail, you guys have Mr. Elliott in custody on a felony, is that right? Okay, thanks.
Your Honor, it's Joe Records again.
Yes.
He's only currently being held on city misdemeanor charges, no felonies.
Mr. Elliott?
That is correct.
So just on the other matters.
Choose.
All right, well, if he's already being held, I'm just gonna release him on this one and give him that same 10-15 date. Okay. Hi, Sarah. Tell me your full name. Tell me your full name.
Roselle Elliott.
Mr. Elliott, you are here tonight on a city misdemeanor charge of criminal trespass. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I am going to enter not guilty pleas on your behalf for this charge. It does look like, Mr. Elliott, that you are being held on a $500 bond through Tucson City Court on some other matters. You do have a hearing on October 15th at 1:45 in front of Judge Verena. That is a video review hearing. Tonight is the time to set your conditions of release and do an arraignment for you on the new criminal trespass charge. So that's what we're here for. I am going to release you on this new charge. So you will be seen by Judge Verena on this case as well as the others that you're being held on. You are ordered to appear at that hearing on the 15th, sir. I know that you'll probably still be in custody and the jail will make sure you appear via video on that date. But I do have to tell you that if you don't appear at your hearings, either this one on the 15th or any subsequently set hearings, those can go forward in your absence. That will include a trial and a warrant could issue for your arrest. If you're convicted at trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days of that conviction, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. I am going to order as your conditions of release, once you get released on this matter, sir, that you not return to the incident location or have any contact with the victims there. Do you understand your conditions of release, Mr. Elliott, on this new charge?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that's all for today, sir. And I didn't white out that other date that we don't need, so I have if we want to be okay. Hi, sir. Tell me your full name.
Charles Meyer.
Mr. Meyer, you are here tonight on a petition to revoke your probation out of Tucson City Court. There is a warrant for your arrest out of Tucson City Court for that and multiple other matters. This is the time for your initial appearance on that warrant. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. We are going to set your conditions of release today, sir. I am going to impose a bond in the amount of $2,500 cash. That was the amount that was on your warrant for the petition to revoke probation. If you do post that $2,500 cash bond and you are released, you're to commit no further acts of domestic violence. I am going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. Your next hearing is going to be October 23rd at 1:30 in the afternoon. That is a video review hearing in front of Judge Millian. If you fail to appear, if you bond out, a warrant could be issued for your arrest for failing to appear. Do you understand your conditions of release, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear? All right, that's all for tonight. Hi, ma'am. Tell me your full name.
Guys, Iverson.
Ms. Iverson, you are here on multiple matters this evening. Most of them are warrants. The first one is a warrant out of Justice Court. And then you have multiple matters out of Tucson City Court for drug paraphernalia, criminal trespass, multiple counts of each of those, assault, and then more criminal trespass, drug paraphernalia charges. You do have the right to remain silent on all these. Anything you say can and will be used against you. So Ms. Iverson, I'm going to talk about the city court cases first, ma'am. You do have an extensive history with them and failures to appear on all of these matters. This is the time that we're going to set your conditions of release. I am going to impose a $2,000 cash or secured bond this evening. I'm going to appoint the city public defender's office to represent you. If you do post that bond, your additional conditions of release do not have any contact with the victims. Those would be any of the incident locations where the criminal trespassings occurred or the assaults. Do not go back to the incident locations anywhere those criminal trespasses occurred, and the assault, don't go back there. Your next court date is going to be October 18th at 1:45. That's going to be a video review hearing in front of Judge Sergio at Tucson City Court. That will be the hearing for all of your city court matters. Do you understand your conditions of release, Ms. Iverson, in the city court cases?
That's today.
October 18th is the date for your hearing at Tucson City Court.
So I'm being arrested.
You've already been arrested, ma'am, so now you're in custody, and now what we're talking about are your conditions of release. I am imposing a $2,000 cash or secured bond. If you can post the bond, then you'll be released from jail. If you cannot, you will be staying in jail until your hearing on October 18th. I've appointed the city public defender's office to represent you, so someone will be out to talk with you or to talk with you on video before that date.
But those are, no, I have misdemeanor charges. That's it. I don't have any of those charges.
Yes, all of those charges are misdemeanor charges, ma'am, through Tucson City Court. And there are multiple cases that you've had and multiple failures to appear on each of those cases.
Yeah, because I don't have a way to get to court yet, so I don't have a date scheduled. I shouldn't have to stay in jail for that.
Well, I am imposing the $2,000 bond. Do you understand your conditions of release?
No, I don't. That means I'm getting released today?
No, it means you're being held on the $2,000 bond
For what, for which part?
for all of the city court cases, the charges that I read to you earlier. And your failures to appear for all of those charges.
Why do I have to stay for over
So,
2 weeks?
ma'am,
That
you
makes no
don't,
sense.
you don't have to like what I've done, but do you understand what I have done?
Yes, but
Okay.
I don't understand.
So that's what's happening. And then when you get seen by Tucson City Court judge, they can change those conditions. But that's what's happening tonight. I do need to talk with you also about your justice court case. There is one case there for a shoplifting warrant that you had. I am going to release you on that case because your hearing in justice court's not going to be until November 8th at 8:30. So I do anticipate that you will be out of custody by then. So you're not going to be held on the justice court case. You do need to appear on November 8th at 8:30 in the morning at Pima County Justice Court. If you don't show up, they're going to issue another warrant for your arrest and you'll find yourself back in custody. You are not to return to the incident location where that shoplifting occurred or have any contact with the victims there. Do you understand your conditions of release in that case, Ms. Iverson?
Yeah,
And do you understand that failing to appear for these cases could result in additional warrants for your arrest?
yes.
All right, that's all for tonight. Hi, sir. Tell me your full name.
This is Jack Lane.
Mr. Lane, you were here on a couple of different matters out of Pima County Justice Court. I do note one is from 2019, the other one is from 2022. It does look like you have a history of failing to appear at Justice Court. The address that I'm showing for you right now, sir, is a general delivery address. Are those still your circumstances?
I don't have an address, no.
Okay. So here's the thing, Mr. Lane, if I release you tonight, you have to promise to come back to court for these two cases. They're not going to go away. If you don't show up at the court date that I give you, you're just going to keep getting arrested on these cases. So if I,
I'm sorry. Not to interrupt you, but this has already been about the third time that they picked me up on this and I haven't made it to court. Is there any way that we can just keep it until the court, that you can just keep me until the court date?
I can impose a bond tonight and appoint you an attorney, and then you'll be seen tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
For court again at 1
Yes.
o'clock?
Yes, you'll be seen tomorrow at 1 o'clock on these two cases.
So you wanted to release me tonight and then have me come tomorrow at 1 o'clock?
No, if I release you tonight, you're not going to have to come back to court until November 12th. If I keep you in jail tonight because you're not going to show up at the court date that I give you, then you'll be seen tomorrow, but you're going to have to stay in jail.
All right.
All right, what? Do you want to stay in jail or do you want to get out tonight and promise that you're going to show up at the next court date?
No, I'm really trying to move out of town, and either way, I'll probably move before the court date, or I won't make it, and they'll just bring me back. So I would like to just stay.
Okay. So I'm going to impose a bond tonight, Mr. Lane, of $500, cash or secured. This will be as to both of your matters that you have pending. And as I've indicated, you do have a history of failing to appear on these charges. The charges that we have are disorderly conduct. I am going to appoint, and I'll give you the other charge in just a second. I'm going to appoint Caitlin Waters to represent you. Your hearing will be tomorrow, October 10th at 1 o'clock in front of Judge Cornejo. It'll be a video hearing, much like what you're doing here today. You'll just be in front of a magistrate through, or a justice of the peace through justice court. so that you can get these matters resolved. Your other case is a threats and intimidation charge, also a warrant on that case. So I will do the same thing, $500 bond on both of those cases. Ms. Waters will represent you for both of those, and your court date will be tomorrow at 1 o'clock. You do need to make sure that you appear. If for any reason you do post that bond between tonight and tomorrow, you do need to appear. A consequence for failing to appear will be more warrants for your arrest. Do you understand that, Mr. Lane?
Yeah.
All right, that's all for tonight, sir. Hi, tell me your full name.
Antonio Mejia.
Mr. Mejia, you are here tonight on a charge out of justice court for an admin per se suspension on your license, driving on a suspended license. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say kind of will be used against you. We also have some city court matters as well. Sir, if I release you on this charge, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you in the future?
Yes.
All right. An address that I have for you on East Blackledge, is that still a good address for you?
Yes.
All right. I will release you on your promise to appear on this case. Your additional conditions of release are do not drive without a valid license. Your next court date is going to be November 8th at 8:30 in the morning. That is going to be at Pima County Justice Court. When you get released later today, you will get copies of your paperwork that will have that date and time on it, and also the address to Justice Court. Your city court case, you had a matter where you were supposed to show up to court and provide proof that you completed certain conditions as a result of the DUI there. It looks like you failed to appear and take care of that. So city court has an issue with that, of course, and has indicated that you have violated your probation by failing to appear. I'm going to release you on your city court case as well tonight, sir. Your hearing at city court is going to be November 5th at 2 o'clock with Judge Mayhew. You should be prepared to appear at that time and also submit any required proofs that you need. They did issue a warrant because you didn't do that. Do you understand?
Yes.
And if you fail to appear at that hearing at city court, they could issue another warrant for your arrest. So make sure you show up, okay?
Yes.
All right, that's all for tonight. There's no place on where to show release, so I just like indicated the date for the 5th.
Danielle?
Hi, ma'am. Tell me your full name.
Danielle Elizabeth Mulvey.
Hi, Miss Mulvey. You are here tonight on a couple of warrants out of justice court that involve driving on a suspended license. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I'm showing an address for you on South 6th Avenue. Is that still a good address for you, Miss Mulvey?
Yeah, it's Primavera.
Okay. If I release you tonight, will you promise to show up at justice court at a date and time that I give you so that you can get these matters resolved?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. They're not going to go away. It looks like they're both from 2023. And the warrant was issued for you on March of 2024 for the newer matter. So I will release you tonight on your promise to appear on both of these cases. Your next court date is going to be October 28th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon at Pima County Justice Court in front of Judge Steele. You are not to drive without a valid license. That is an additional condition. Do you understand your conditions, ma'am?
Yes, I do.
And if you fail to appear at that date and time, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Do you understand that as well?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that's all for tonight, ma'am.
Thank you.
Hi, tell me your full name.
Wayne Wheeler.
Mr. Wheeler, you were here on multiple counts of domestic violence this evening, domestic violence assault, preventing use of a telephone in an emergency, and also criminal damage. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say kind of will be used against you. The address that I have for you, sir, is on North Huntbach Road. Is that a good address for you in Marana?
Yes, yes, ma'am.
So at this time, if I do release you tonight, you are not going to be allowed to reside or have contact with Carrie Smith.
That's fine.
Is that an address away from her?
Yes, ma'am, it is away from her.
Right. And if I give you a court date in the future, will you promise to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. I am going to release you on that promise to appear, sir. Your next court date is going to be November 8th at 10:30 in the morning at Pima County Justice Court. When you get released later today, they'll give you copies of your paperwork. Your additional conditions of release involve committing no further acts of domestic violence. You are not to have any contact with Miss Smith. Do not go to her residence or her work. I will note for purposes of the record that there was a Form 4C completed in this case. It's a risk assessment for domestic violence, and I have considered that in my decision this evening. Do you understand your
Okay.
conditions of release, Mr. Wheeler?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And do you understand that if you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Right, that's all for tonight.
Thank you.
Hi, sir, tell me your full name.
David William Abreu.
Mr. Abril, you were here on a Tucson City Court charge, two of them disorderly conduct and public sexual indecency. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I am going to enter pleas of not guilty on your behalf. If I release you on these two charges, sir, will you promise to show up at a court date that I give you at Tucson City Court?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I am going to appear. Your additional conditions of release involve not returning to that incident location, the senior care facility on South Liberty Avenue. Do not go back there. Do not have any contact with anyone there. They are the victims of this particular incident. Do you understand those additional conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
This is also the time for your arraignment through Tucson City Court for these charges. I've told you I've entered pleas of not guilty on your behalf. You are ordered to appear at that hearing on November 21st. Sorry, hang on a second. So that hearing is November 21st at 9:30 in the morning, and that will be in front of Judge Sergio. I do need to tell you that if you fail to appear at that hearing or any subsequent hearings, they can go forward in your absence, and that will include the trial. If you're convicted at trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand that, Mr. Abril?
Yes.
All right, that's all for tonight.
Okay. So, do release yours.
Yes, sir, you're being released. You're going to get released tonight. You're going to get copies of your paperwork. She's actually here for other matters, so she's sitting there, but just doing other things, all right?
Okay.
Yes, sorry. Hi, ma'am, tell me your full name.
Patricia Burrell.
Ms. Farrell, you are here tonight on city court charges involving assault, criminal damage, disorderly conduct, and drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. This is the time for your initial appearance and arraignment for these charges through Tucson City Court. I am going to enter pleas of not guilty on your behalf. I do need to talk with you about conditions of release. If I release you tonight, ma'am, will you promise to appear at a future court date that I give you at Tucson City Court for these charges?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, I am going to release you tonight on your promise to appear. Your next hearing date is going to be November 7th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon in front of Judge Maldonado. When you get released later today, you will get copies of your paperwork that will have that date and time, as well as the address for Tucson City Court and the judge you're to appear in front of. Your additional conditions of release are that you not have any contact with the victim of the charges in this case and do not return to the incident location. Do you understand your conditions of release?
Yes.
So you are ordered to appear at the hearing on November 7th. If you don't appear at that hearing or any subsequently set hearings, including a trial, they could go forward in your absence. A warrant could be issued for your arrest. And if you're convicted at trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days of the conviction, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand the consequences for failing to appear?
Yes, ma'am.
That's all for tonight, Ms. Burrell.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, sir. Tell me your full name.
Yes, ma'am. It is Patrick Ryan McNamara.
Mr. McNamara, you are here on several charges involving domestic violence, disorderly conduct, domestic violence, assault, 2 counts, 2 additional counts of disorderly conduct, and additional counts of assault, criminal trespass in the 2nd degree, criminal damage, preventing or interfering with the use of a telephone device in an emergency, another criminal damage charge, and a criminal trespass charge. Those are all misdemeanors out of Tucson City Court. This is the time for your initial appearance and your arraignment on all of those charges. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I am going to enter pleas if not guilty on your behalf for all of these charges this evening. I do note that you have an address on East Hermans Road. Is that address away from your mother, Miss McNamara?
Yes, ma'am, it is. It is a decent amount of distance away, but if released on recognizance, I promise not to contact or go in that area.
It looks like you have multiple matters pending out of Tucson City Court. If I give you a date to appear, will you promise to show up at that date and deal with these matters?
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
So I am going to release you on your promise to appear on these matters. Your next court date is going to be November 7th at 9 o'clock in the morning in front of Judge Cranshaw at Tucson City Court. Your additional conditions of release involve committing no acts of domestic violence. You are not to have any contact with your mother. No texting, no phone calls, no social media. Don't go to her house. Don't go to her work. Do not have any contact at all with her. Do you understand?
I understand, yes, ma'am.
Because this is also the time for your arraignment, sir, I do need to tell you that you are ordered to appear at that hearing on November 7th. And if you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. Also, the case could go forward in your absence. And if you're convicted at a trial on these matters and can't be sentenced within 90 days of that conviction, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand the consequences for failing to appear, Mr. McNamara?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that's all for tonight.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Your Honor, this is Ms. Tarazona Jr. She's a Spanish speaker.
I do believe we have the court interpreter on the line, right?
Yes, Your Honor, the interpreter is on the line.
Okay. Good evening, ma'am. Tell me your full name.
Buenas tardes, señora. Por favor, ¿me dice su nombre completo?
Silvia Patricia Tarazón.
Silvia Patricia Tarazón.
And I have Tarazon Orduño. Is that your true name?
Tengo que su nombre es Tarazón Orduño. ¿Su nombre correcto?
Sí.
Yes.
All right. This is the time for your initial appearance on theft and trafficking and stolen property charges.
Y este es su
comparecencia inicial en tráfico y cargos de negociar sobre propiedad robada.
You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of this hearing tonight.
Y usted tiene derecho a permanecer en silencio. Cualquier cosa que diga puede ser usada en su contra. Voy a nombrar un abogado del defensor público para que la represente, y hoy en la noche tiene con usted sentado un abogado a su lado.
I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services and also to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release.
Tuve la oportunidad de revisar la información de servicios previos al juicio y también las recomendaciones del Estado, la Fiscalía, con respecto a sus condiciones de liberación.
It is my intention to release Ms. Tarazona Orduño to pretrial services. Does either counsel wish to be heard?
Y es mi intención de dejar en libertad a la señora Tarazona Orduño para que esté en contacto con los servicios previos al juicio. ¿Alguno de los abogados tiene algo que decir?
Good evening, Your Honor. Nothing further from the state.
Nada
thank you.
adicional de la Fiscalía. Y la defensa dice no, su señoría.
All right. Ms. Tarazona Orduño, I do show an address for you on South Camino de la Paz. Is that a good address?
Señora Tarazona Orduño, tengo que la dirección suya es Sur, Camino de la Paz. ¿Esa es su dirección correcta?
No.
No.
What is a good address for you, ma'am?
¿Cuál es una dirección correcta para usted, señora?
803 West Idaho Street.
803 West Idaho Street.
And do you know the zip code?
¿Sabe el número del código postal?
85706.
85706.
All right, thank you. I am going
Gracias.
to release you to the custody of pretrial services this evening. You are to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on.
Y yo le voy a dejar en libertad bajo la custodia de los servicios previos al juicio, y debe usted seguir todo en el monitoreo y tratamiento que recomienden ellos. No debe poseer ni consumir drogas ni alcohol, ni tampoco cargar o poseer ningún arma de fuego.
You are not to have any contact with the victim in this case and do not return to the incident location.
No puede tener contacto con la víctima de este caso y tampoco puede regresar al lugar del incidente.
Do you understand your conditions of release?
¿Usted comprende cuáles son sus condiciones de liberación?
Sí.
Yes.
Your next court date is October 29th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for appearing for all future court dates.
Y su próxima fecha de audiencia va a ser el 29 de octubre a la 1:30 de la tarde, que es una audiencia preliminar. Puede que se realice o no se realice, pero usted es responsable de presentarse a esa audiencia y a cualquier otra audiencia futura.
If you fail to appear for future court dates, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. So it's very important that you stay in contact with your attorney.
Y si usted no comparece a las audiencias futuras, a usted le pueden emitir una orden de arresto en su contra, y por eso es importante que usted mantenga contacto con su abogado.
That's all for tonight, ma'am.
Y eso es todo por hoy, señora.
And Madam Interpreter, I think that's all we have tonight for Spanish speakers. Have a lovely evening.
Thank you. You too, Your Honor. Interpreter will now disconnect.
Hi, sir. Tell me your full name. Mr. Alvarado, you are here tonight on a warrant out of Pima County Superior Court for failing to appear for an arraignment. You're also here on a couple of city court matters we're going to talk about in a minute. We're going to talk about the felony case first. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here this evening. There is a $500 warrant amount listed on the warrant for your failure to appear on September 20th, 2024. Sir, I'm showing an address for you on West 42nd. Is that a good address for you?
Yes.
All right. I do note that the state is asking for the $500 on the warrant. Ms. Goodman, did you want to be heard further?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
Your Honor, we would ask that you release Mr. Alvarado to pretrial services supervision. His only prior felony arrest in 2016, he was terminated from probation early. That was designated a misdemeanor. So he will be probation available in this case. This case was dismissed and refiled, and it appears that the notice about court hearings was mailed to general delivery. Mr. Alvarado at this time is residing with his father. That's the address that he just confirmed with the court. So we will be able to receive mail about future court dates, and I think he has a little bit more stability in order to stay in touch with his attorney and resolve the case. This is a nonviolent property offense, and given the fact that I don't believe that he had actual notice of the prior arraignment dates that he did miss, we would ask that you give him an opportunity with pretrial.
So, Mr. Alvarado, if I release you to pretrial services, it means that you have to stay in contact with that agency and you have to show up at the court dates that I'm going to give you. Not only the matter in Pima County Superior Court for your felonies, but also on the city court cases. Will you do that? All right. I am going to release you to the custody of pretrial services tonight. You're to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You can't have any firearms while this case is going on. In your felony matter, sir, your arraignment is going to be October 16th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That will be at Pima County Superior Court on the 8th floor. You do need to appear at that date and time. If you fail to appear, they will issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand your conditions of release, Mr. Alvarado?
Yes, I do.
And do you understand the consequences if you fail to appear? All right. We now need to talk about your city court cases. Those are charges of theft and shoplifting or drug paraphernalia. You do have the right to remain silent on those charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I'm going to release you on your promise to appear on those cases as well. This is the time for your initial appearance and arraignment on those charges, so I am going to enter not guilty pleas for you for those two charges. Your next hearing in city court is going to be November 12th at 9:30 in the morning, and that's going to be in front of Judge Mayhew at Tucson City Court. You do need to appear at that date and time, or a warrant could issue for your arrest. If you don't appear at that hearing or any subsequently set hearings, they can go forward in your absence, and that will include a trial. If you're convicted at trial and can't be sentenced within 90 days of the conviction, you could lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand the consequences for failing to appear in your city court case, sir? Your additional conditions of release are not returning to the incident location where that theft and shoplifting occurred. The victims are there and you're not to have any contact with them. Do you understand that, Mr. Alvarado? All right, that's all for tonight.
Johnson?
Hi, sir. Tell me your full name. Mr. Johnson, you are here tonight on charges of aggravated shoplifting and organized retail theft. They're felonies. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here tonight. I have had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. I've also had a chance to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. They are recommending a $3,500 bond. Ms. Goodman, did you want to be heard further?
Yes, Your Honor, the recommendation is based on the significant amount of theft and separate incidents that took place against multiple local businesses. We're looking at 54 different incidents. I do understand he has no prior criminal history. Nonetheless, in different dates, he is facing mandatory prison, and that's also a risk to the community. Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
John, our pretrial services did give Mr. Johnson a score of 1. As Ms. Goodman noted, he has no prior felony arrests or convictions of any kind. These are nonviolent property offenses. He does reside with his girlfriend, so he will have somewhere to go if he's able to be released from jail. Given that he has absolutely no prior felony arrests of any kind in the nature of these offenses, we would ask that you release him to pretrial services supervision.
Mr. Johnson, if I release you to pretrial, you are not to return to any of the incident locations where these theft and shopliftings occur. Do you understand that?
Yes, Your Honor.
I am going to release you to pretrial services, given your lack of criminal history. I do share the state's concern given the number of incidents that were reported in this case. However, I'm going to release you to pretrial. You're to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. You are to have no contact with any of the victims. That means do not return to any of the incident locations where these incidents occurred. Do you understand all of those conditions of release?
Your Honor.
Your next hearing is going to be October 29th at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for showing up at all future dates. If you fail to appear, a warrant could issue for your arrest. It's important, Mr. Johnson, that you stay in contact with your attorney in the event that the dates change. Do you understand the consequences for failing to appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, that's all for tonight.
Thanks.
Madam,
Thanks. Oh, it has to.
Hi, sir. Tell me your full name.
Thanks, Robert Allen.
Mr. Maddox, you are here on multiple charges this evening. You do have a felony charge involving criminal trespass. You have 3 matters out of justice court for failing to appear, and you also have matters out of Tucson City Court where you have failed to appear. You do have the right to remain silent on all of these charges. Anything you say can and will be used against you. On the felony charge, you do have a right to an attorney in that matter, and I am going to appoint the legal defender's office to represent you. You do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing tonight. We're going to be setting your conditions of release on all of these cases. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. I've also had the opportunity to review the state's recommendation in this case. They are recommending a $3,500 bond on the felony matter. And we'll talk about the other misdemeanor cases as well. Ms. Goodman, did you want to be heard further?
Your Honor, I would note the defendant's criminal history. He has 9 prior convictions. His last case ended on July 2024. Now he's before the Courtroom, multiple failing to appear, and the concern is that he's also he has an NVCA flag as well. He scores a 6 out of 6.
Ms. Johnson?
Your Honor, given that this is a nonviolent offense and this Class 6 felony, we would ask to give him an opportunity in pretrial services supervision.
I do have.
Sorry,
Sure.
What you say? And I didn't know this. Discuss that.
He will be starting a new job in 2 days, he indicated. Also, he is engaged in drug treatment. I understand he was recently in detox. He would be able to re-engage with them fairly quickly, given that he has been engaged with them very recently. So again, I would ask that you release him. Thank you.
Okay.
Mr.
Soon to
Maddox,
be, oh,
I'm sorry.
soon
go
to be
ahead.
outpatient treatment.
I'm an alcoholic and I'm supposed to start outpatient treatment. I've been in detox. I'm really trying, Your Honor.
Where?
I just say please, please.
Where?
Yeah.
Where have you been?
Kodak, Your Honor, and also I've been like I was informed that the livers when I did my lab, my liver's getting bad from drinking. So yeah, I gotta do something about that with the hospital. So that's the reason I went to detox. It's like something's wrong with my liver. So yeah, it's getting bad.
Mr. Maddox, you have failures to appear everywhere. You haven't gone to court and you don't go to court when you're required to appear.
Yeah, I've been really trying, man. I mean, if you look at my history, I mean, I've had a lot of felonies. I just got out of prison, but I'm really trying. I did go to. It's just this whole thing with the liver and everything has just got me shook up. So that's why I've been in detox and I'm really trying. That's all I can say.
If I release you to pretrial services, you have to go to the 3 separate court dates that I'm going to give you tonight, Mr. Maddox, all of them. And you have to make sure that you show up. If you're in
Yes,
detox,
ma'am.
if you're in outpatient, you've got an
Yes,
attorney
ma'am.
that's appointed to represent you. You must stay in contact with them so that they know what's going on. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
I am
Yes, ma'am.
going to order on your felony case that you be released to pretrial services. You have to stay in contact with that agency, participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to have any alcohol or illegal drugs. You cannot have any firearms while this case is going on. Do not return to the incident location or have any contact with the victims that are there. Do you understand those conditions of release
Yes,
in that case?
Yes, ma'am.
Your next hearing on your felony matter, sir, is October 29th at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand that?
Yes, ma'am.
We need to talk about your justice court matters next. I am going to release you on your promise to appear on those cases, given what you've told me here this evening. Your next court date at justice court is going to be November 8th at 8:30 in the morning. And that will be at Pima County Justice Court. When you get released later today, Mr. Maddox, you're going to get copies of paperwork. When you get the copies of the paperwork, it's going to have your court dates and times on them. It's important that you hold on to that so that you know when you're supposed to appear. If you don't, they're just going to issue more warrants and you're going to find yourself back in jail. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. Give me just a second while I complete all of your justice court paperwork. There is a shoplifting warrant out of justice court, Mr. Maddox. Don't return to that incident location. One final matter to talk about at justice court is also a shoplifting. Again, don't go back to
Yes,
that
ma'am.
incident location.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Are you going back to Kodak, sir?
Yes, ma'am.
Right. You're going to have lots of help and services through Kodak. They'll also, I think, help arrange to make sure that you get to court. So if you let them know about your court dates, whoever it
Yeah.
is that you're working with there, I'm sure will be able to assist you as well. So
Okay. Thank you.
let's talk about your city court cases next. I am going to release you on your promise to appear. There are criminal trespassing and shoplifting matters pending out of city court. You're not to return to the incident locations or have contact with the victims. Your next court date is going to be November 13th at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's going to be in front of Judge Hale.
Okay.
For
Yes, ma'am.
For your city court matters, sir, this is the time for your initial appearance and arraignment. So we've done the portion dealing with your conditions of release. I need to tell you that I'm entering pleas of not guilty on your behalf. You are ordered to appear at that date and time that I gave you for Tucson City Court. If you don't appear at that hearing and any subsequent hearings can go forward in your absence, including a trial. And if you're convicted at trial and can't be sentenced in a certain time period, you could lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand the consequences for failing to
Yes.
appear?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right, Mr. Maddox. Stay in contact with Kodak. Keep working
Yeah.
your program. You can do this. Make sure you show up, okay? Okay, that's all for tonight. Oh, sorry, he has city court ones. I passed it the wrong way. Sorry, guys. Thought I had it down. Hey, Sarah, tell me your full name. Is your middle name Kamal?
Yes.
All right, sir, you are here tonight on a charge of possession of burglary tools. It is a felony charge. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say kind of will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the legal defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing tonight. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. Also had a chance to review information provided by the state as to your conditions of release. It is the court's intention to release you to pretrial services. Does either counsel wish to be heard on this?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
So, Mr. Motti, you're being released tonight to pretrial services. Means you need to stay in contact with that agency. It's an agency through Superior Court. Participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs while this case is going on. You can't have any firearms. Do not have any contact with the victim and don't return to the incident location. Do you understand all of those conditions of release, Mr. Motti?
Yes.
Your next hearing date is October 29th at 1:30. That is a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for showing up at all future court dates. If there are changes in your court dates, your attorney is the person that you need to make sure you stay in contact with for changes in those dates. If you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand to appear?
Yes.
All right, that's all for tonight.
I go back outside. Yeah.
Hi, sir. Tell me your full name.
Pedro Javier Martinez III.
I'm sorry?
Pedro Javier Martinez III.
All right, Mr. Martinez, you are here tonight on charges of possession of dangerous drugs and possession of drug paraphernalia. We also have some city court cases we need to talk about. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney on these felony charges. I am going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing tonight. I've had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services in this case. I've also had a chance to review information provided by the state as to your conditions of release. Mr. Martinez, you may be eligible to participate in a substance abuse treatment court through Pima County Superior Court. If you agree to participate in substance abuse treatment, then the state may not go forward with these 2 felony drug charges against you. Is that something that you would like to see if you qualify for and participate in?
Yeah, I don't see why not. And I think it's of interest. Thank you.
It is a good opportunity for you. You will need to stay in contact with pretrial services. I am inclined to release him to pretrial services. Does either counsel wish to be heard further?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor, thank you.
And Ms. Johnson, are we willing to waive time for the preliminary hearing to see if he's eligible to participate?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So, Mr. Martinez, you will be released tonight to pretrial services. You must stay in contact with that agency. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs. You can't have any firearms while this case is going on. I'm showing an address for you on West Santa Luisa. Is that still a good address for you, sir?
Yes.
Okay. Your next court date is going to be October 16th at 9 o'clock in the morning. That's going to be next week at Pima County Superior Court on the 3rd floor. You're going to see Judge Hampson. At that hearing, you're going to have the chance to meet with your attorney from the Public Defender's Office. Pretrial services will be there, and several members from treatment agencies in our community will also be there to connect you to services. You'll have the opportunity to meet with them and talk with them about what the program requirements will be. And if you successfully complete the program requirements, then the state will not go forward with these felony charges. So make sure you show up on the 16th at 9 a.m. The hearing after that I asked Ms. Johnson about giving additional time on is for the state to determine whether or not they're going to go forward on these charges and finding probable cause. So that next hearing after your one on October 16th is going to be November 25th at 1:30. That's a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur. So it's important that you stay in contact with your attorney in the event that the date changes. You are responsible for showing up at all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, they could issue a warrant for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences for failing to appear, Mr. Martinez?
Yes, ma'am.
And do you understand your conditions of release?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. We need to talk about your city court cases. Looks like you have a criminal trespass charge stemming from, it looks like 2019. And there was a warrant issued back in August of 2019 for failing to appear for that criminal trespass charge. Again, sir, you do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. I'm going to enter pleas of not guilty on the criminal trespass charge. It also looks like there's a charge involving you being in a park after hours. That hearing in city court is going to be November 12th at 9 a.m. and that's going to be in front of Judge Mayhew. So I'm releasing you on your city court cases. You can't have any contact with the victims. Wherever that criminal trespass was, do not return to that incident location. I also need to tell you, sir, since this is the time for your arraignment on those as well, that if you don't appear at that hearing or any subsequently set hearings, including a trial, you could be convicted in your absence. A warrant could be issued for your arrest. And if you can't be sentenced within 90 days of the conviction, you could also lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand all the consequences for failing to appear, sir? Is that okay? That's all for tonight, Mr. Martinez. Hi, ma'am. Tell me your full name. Is your middle name Lynn?
Yes.
All right. You are here tonight on a few different matters this evening, Ms. Parker. The first is a felony charge involving unlawful use of means of transportation. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the Public Defender's Office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of this hearing. I have had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services on this matter. I've also had an opportunity to review the state's recommendation as to your conditions of release. That's what we're setting tonight on your felony case before we talk about your misdemeanor matters. I do note that the state is requesting a $3,500 bond. Ms. Goodman, did you want to be heard further?
Your Honor, the nature of the bond is based on the defendant's failed to appear history.
Ms. Johnson?
Your Honor, this is Ms. Parker's first felony arrest of any kind, and she will be probation available at trial. This is a nonviolent property offense. Given that, we would ask that you give her an opportunity of pretrial services supervision.
So Ms. Parker, I am going to release you to pretrial services tonight. You are going to be required to stay in contact with that agency. You also need to stay in contact with your attorney. Additional conditions of release involve not returning to the incident location, and you can't have any contact with the victims. You must participate in any monitoring or treatment directed by pretrial. You cannot possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. Your next hearing date in the felony matter is going to be October 29th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That is a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for appearing at all future court dates, and if you fail to appear, a warrant will issue for your arrest. It's important to stay in contact with your attorney in the event that those dates change. Do you understand, Ms. Parker? I need an answer out loud, ma'am. Okay. We also need to talk about your 2 misdemeanor matters. There are 2 separate cases, one involving an assault from June of 2022, the other involving a DV criminal damage and assault from May of 2022. Looks like there was a warrant on a failure to appear in July of 2022. There are bond amounts of $500 each on those 2 cases. If I release you tonight on these 2 misdemeanor cases, do you promise to show up at the date that I give you for your justice court matter? It's going to be a separate date from your felony case, and you do need to appear.
Yes.
All right, I'm going to release you on your promise to appear on both of these cases. You're not to have any contact with the victims. Do not return to the incident locations. Your next court date for both of those justice court matters is going to be October 21st at 2:00 in the afternoon in front of Judge Steele at Pima County Justice Court. Again, ma'am, these are not going to go away. If you don't appear, they're just going to issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you understand?
Yes.
All right, that's all for tonight. Hi, ma'am. Tell me your full name.
Yeah, Gasolina Rodriguez.
Ms. Rodriguez, you were here on a warrant out of Pima County Superior Court for failing to appear for an arraignment on a narcotic drug violation charge and a drug paraphernalia charge. We also have some city court cases we need to talk about. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing tonight. I have had the opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services on this case. I've also had an opportunity to review information provided by the state. It does look like there is a $7,500 amount on the warrant that was issued in August of this year. That is what the state is recommending on the felony case. Ms. Goodman, did you want to be heard further?
Yes, Your Honor, I would note the defendant was originally arrested and released. She failed to appear for arraignments in 2 separate occasions after she was re-released to pretrial services and still failed to appear.
And Ms. Johnson, I am inclined to hold Ms. Rodriguez on that $7,500 bond, given her failures to appear and notices through pretrial services. Did you want to be heard?
Your Honor, I would ask that you give her another opportunity on pretrial services release. She is only 19 years old. This is her first felony arrest of any kind. This is a drug offense. Given that, we would ask that you consider releasing her to pretrial services. Thank you.
Ma'am, I'm not going to release you to pretrial, but I will reduce the bond from that listed on the warrant. I will reduce it to $2,500. That's going to be a cash or secured bond. If you're able to post that bond, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You're to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You're not allowed to possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms while this case is going on. Your next court date in this matter is going to be October 16th at 1:30 in the afternoon. That's going to be your arraignment. If you're still in custody, the jail will make sure you're transported for that hearing. But if you post bond and get released, you must appear at that date and time, or they will issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you understand your conditions of release in your felony case, Ms. Rodriguez?
Yes.
And do you understand the consequences for failing to appear?
Yes.
All right. We need to talk about your city court cases now. Those are drug paraphernalia charges. Looks like there's 3 separate ones. This is the time for your initial appearance and arraignment on those drug paraphernalia charges, 2 new ones, and then a failure to appear on an older drug paraphernalia charge. I am going to enter pleas of not guilty on your behalf. Your next hearing date on that case is going to be October 18th at 1:45. That's going to be a video review hearing in front of Judge Maldonado. If you're still in custody on your felony case, then you'll appear via video, much like you're doing today. I'm going to release you on your city court cases. So if you get released on your felony case, then you do need to appear at city court separately. When you get released, you're going to get copies of your paperwork that will have the video review hearing date that I just gave you of October 18th. But if you bond out, you're going to need to appear at city court on November 7th at 2 o'clock. Again, you'll get copies of your paperwork, so those dates will be there. I do need to tell you, Ms. Rodriguez, that if you fail to appear at that hearing, the October 18th or November 7th hearing, that hearing and any subsequently set hearings can go forward in your absence and a warrant can issue for your arrest. If you are convicted at a trial on those matters and can't be sentenced, you could lose your right to a direct appeal. Do you understand that those are the consequences for failing to appear?
Yes.
All right, that's all for tonight, Ms. Rodriguez. Hi, sir. Tell me your full name.
Mario Caño Soto.
Mr. Soto, you are here tonight on a charge of theft of means of transportation. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I am going to appoint the public defender's office to represent you, and you do have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here this evening. I have had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. It does look like you are on probation in two separate CR numbers through Pima County Superior Court. I don't know if the jail is showing a hold yet through probation.
No, Your Honor. Record said no.
I'm sorry?
Record said there's no probation.
Okay. You are on probation for those two felony matters. So I have had an opportunity to review the state's recommendation. They are recommending a $10,000 bond. Ms. Goodman, did you want to be heard further?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
Your Honor, I would ask the court to consider on probation in two separate matters. However, those offense dates are in 2012, so now over 12 years ago. I understand from Mr. Soto that the reason his probation has been continued is because he is engaged with restitution court and he is making regular payments and it remains engaged through restitution court. He is employed full-time at Window Depot. He has now been there for over 2 years. He does reside with his partner and his daughter. Given that he has remained engaged with probation, he has no prior felony offenses that involve any kind of violence or weapons. I think they're all non-violent property offenses or drug offenses. And it does appear that he has remained engaged with probation and is trying to work down paying that restitution. We would ask the court to consider releasing him. He will obviously lose his employment if he is held in the jail this evening, which will put him further back on making payments to the victims in his 2012 cases. So given the nature of the offense, Your Honor, given that he will be additionally supervised by probation, we would ask that you release him to pretrial.
So Mr. Soto, based on the fact that the probation matters are in restitution court, I am going to release you to pretrial services this evening. You are to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. Do not possess or consume any alcohol or illegal drugs, and you can't have any firearms. Do not have any contact with the victims and do not return to the incident location. This is on the theft of means case. Do you understand those conditions of release?
Yes, I do.
You also need to contact your probation officer tomorrow to let them know about this new case. Do you understand that?
I already contacted her today, so she knows about it.
Great. Your next hearing in this case is going to be October 29th at 1:30. That is a preliminary hearing. That court date may or may not occur, but you will be responsible for showing up to all future court dates. And if you fail to appear, a warrant can issue for your arrest. Do you understand the consequences for failing to appear, Mr. Soto?
Yes, I do, and I'll show up and appreciate you, Honor.
All right. Have a good night, sir.
You too. Thank you.
Hi, sir. Tell me your full name.
Julio Verdugo.
Mr. Verdugo, you are here tonight on a warrant out of Pima County Superior Court for attempt to commit kidnapping, aggravated assault impeding the breathing, and another assault, which is a misdemeanor charge. These are domestic violence related offenses. You do have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. You do have the right to an attorney. I'm going to appoint the public defender's office, and you have counsel seated with you for purposes of the hearing here tonight. I've had an opportunity to review information provided by pretrial services. I've also had the opportunity to review information from the state's attorney with respect to their position on your conditions of release. The bond amount on the warrant is $25,000. It was issued in August of 2023. That is the court's inclination, is to impose that bond amount. Ms. Goodman, did you want to be heard further?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Ms. Johnson?
Your Honor, would ask that you release Julio to pretrial services supervision. Pretrial scored him as a 1. He does not have an NVCA scale flag. I think the state indicated some concern about prior FTAs. However, pretrial services does indicate he has no prior failures to appear in the past 2 years. Pretrial services was able to confirm housing with his mother. He is a longtime resident of Tucson. He has no prior felony arrest of any kind, no prior domestic violence arrest, so he will be probation available at trial. Given his lack of criminal history, and given that pretrial was able to confirm housing, Your Honor, we would ask that you release him to pretrial services.
I am going to impose the $25,000 bond that's on the warrant. It is cash or secured. If you're able to post that bond, Mr. Verdugo, then you'll be released to pretrial services. You're ordered to participate in any monitoring or treatment they direct. You cannot have any alcohol or illegal drugs. You cannot have any firearms while this case is going on. Do not commit any further acts of domestic violence. Do not have any contact with the victim of this domestic violence case. Do not go to the residence or workplace of the victim. Do you understand all of your conditions of release, Mr. Verdugo?
Yes, ma'am.
Your next hearing date in this case is October 16th at 1:30. That'll be next week. That's going to be an arraignment. If you're still in custody, the jail will make sure that you're seen via video, much like you're doing today for that court appearance. If you do bond out, it is your responsibility to appear at Pima County Superior Court on the 8th floor for that arraignment. If you do fail to appear, they could issue another warrant for your arrest. Do you understand, Mr. Verdugo?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, that's all for tonight, sir.
I think that was our last hearing, Your Honor.
It was. Thank you all very much. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Good night.